discuss to you the history of computing. So, in 2000 before Christ era, abacus gained popularity fast after it was invented. It is widely used in the Middle East and Asia and is still being used now. The term abacus came from the Greek word abax, meaning flat surface. Computations are done by sliding the beads in the wire arranged on the tray. The flat surface containing pebbles used as counters and moved into various positions is linked to the naming of this ancient counting and computing device. Another type of abacus containing of movable beads on wire appeared in China and was known by its local name Suan Pan. This is an example of abacus. So in 1617, John Napier, a Scottish mathematician, became famous for his invention of logarithm. The use of log reduced a problem of subtraction. He invented a computing device using a set of sticks called bones, which can perform both multiplication and division. So this is the picture of Napier bones. So in 1642, Blaise Pascal, a mathematician, invented the arithmetic engine at that time. So arithmetic engine is the first successful mechanical calculator which can add and subtract numbers containing up to 8 digits. Its drawback was that it could not be produced by the technology at that time. So this is the example of arithmetic engine. So in 1670, Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz invented a calculator that is called stepped reckoner, which can multiply, divide, and can extract square roots, but its drawback was that it was too advanced for the technology at the time. So this is the example. So in 1800s, Joseph Marie Jacquard is the first to successfully use punch cards both for storing information and for controlling the machine that is called Jacquard's loom. In 1801, it became a great commercial success and became a milestone in development of the textile industry and data processing. So this is an example. So in 1822, the difference engine and analytical engine is invented by Charles Babbage, an English inventor and mathematician. Difference engine is a calculator which can compile accurate navigational and artillery tables. Its drawback, it could not also be produced by the technology during that time. And then the analytical engine, in 1835, Babbage also conceived the analytical engine. The machine has two basic components, the memory and the mill. So this is the example of difference engine. Okay, analytical engine, the memory or storage unit, holds all possible numeric variables and the results of all previous calculations. So the mill processes data fit it. The machine has the capacity to compare quantities and then decide which sequence of instructions to follow. The result of processing in the mill permits changing of already stored value, hence it has the ability to modify its own program. The analytic engine has never been built because it could not be produced by the technology at that time. So this is the analytical engine. So the first female computer programmer is Lady Augusta Ada King, the daughter of the English poet Lord Byron and the Countess of Lovelace, whose assistant of Charles Babbage helped him in the machine design of his analytic engine. So her studying of machine enabled her to create instruction routines that could be fed in the computer. This made her by the first female programmer. In the 1980s, the U.S. Defense Department named a programming language Ada in her honor. So this came from her name, Lady Augusta Ada. So that is Lady Ada. So very beautiful. So in 1827, George Boole developed Boolean algebra that became the perfect tool for designing the logic circuits of computer, which expresses and processes problem and logic by using variables. These variables could only take the value of the true and false. So in 1884, Dr. Hermann Hollerith invented the automatic punch card tabulating machine, and the patent was issued in 1889. He constructed an electromechanical machine using perforated cards for the use in the computerized U.S. Census in 1890. Hermann Hollerith's machine was the first commercially successful data processing machine. In 1914, he merged his company with two others to form the Computing Tabulating Recording Company, which later in 1924 became the International Business Machine Corporation, now known as IBM. So this is the picture of punch card tabulating machine. So in 1886, William Burroughs developed the first commercial mechanical adding machine. So this is the first commercial mechanical adding machine. In 1928, Vladimir Zworykin, a Russian immigrant, invented the cathode ray tube or CRT. So that is the cathode ray tube. In 1931, Konrad Zuse, the designer of the early binary computer. His work led to a couple of Z machines from Z1 to Z4, which eventually led to a series of machines built by the Siemens Corporation. So that's the Z1. In 1939, John Vincent Atanasoff, a physicist and mathematician at Iowa State College, Clifford Berry helped John Vincent Atanasoff create the first digital electronic computer in 1939. Atanasoff-Berry computer, or the ABC computer, machine powered by electricity and vacuum tubes to find solutions to systems of linear equations. John Mackley and J. Presper Eckert, the people who Atanasoff shared his ideas and technology. That is the ABC computer. In 1943, Alan Turing, a British mathematician, created a completely electronic computing device called the Colossus. It was a huge version of ABC, designed to decode German messages. It was also powered by electricity and used vacuum tube for its computing circuitry. His Turing machine laid the foundation for the development of general-purpose programmable computers. He published an article on intelligent machines in 1947. His paper launched the idea of artificial intelligence. It was only in 1956 that John McCarthy coined the acronym AL for Artificial Intelligence. So this is the Colossus. So in 1941, Howard Aiken of the Harvard University, in collaboration with IBM engineers, constructed Mark I. Automatic Sequence Control Calculator is the official name of Mark I. It took 5 years to build the size, parts, and rating. Mark I could perform the 4 basic arithmetic operations. It could also multiply 3 8-digit numbers in 1 second. It is considered the largest electromechanical computer. So that is the Mark I. So in 1945, Dr. Grace Hopper discovered the first computer bug in the Harvard Mark II computer. Bug and WG is a moth on the wires of the computer that leads the malfunction. In 1960s, Dr. Hopper made part in using the Common Business-Oriented Language or COBOL, a programming language for business. So this is the first computer bug with Dr. Hopper. So in 1946, the Electronic Numerical Integrator and Calculator or ENIAC was the first programmable electronic general-purpose digital computer. The speed is 1,000 times faster of calculations, has 20 accumulators that perform 5,000 numbers in 1 second. It has limitation by 20 10-digit numbers. The improvement of ENIAC led the development of EDVAC, developed by John Newman with help of Mackey and Eckert. EDVAC was the first stored program computer. So that is the ENIAC. UNIVAC or Universal Automatic Computer in 1951, first commercial computer designed by and Christopher Eckert. Successful in replacing the IBM punch card equipment using magnetic tape as a buffer memory. UNIVAC can store programs in a memory device. In 1953, speed printer was developed for the use in the UNIVAC microprogramming. Maurice V. Wilkes introduced the concept of microprogramming the year the UNIVAC evolved. So this is the UNIVAC or Universal Automatic Computer. So G.W. Dahmer, other expert, presented a paper creating a new technology called integrated circuit. He proposed that a solid block of materials may be used to connect electronic components with no connecting wires. IBM 701 computer, which used vacuum tubes and was considered the first generation computer. So it is a integrated circuit. That is an example of integrated circuit. So in 1954, Formula Translator, the fourth one, produced by Backus and his IBM team. Fortran used to create scientific programs on microcomputers and mainframes. Harlan Herrick ran our first successful Fortran program. So this picture is a Formula Translator. So in 1956, IBM introduced the first hard drive for maintenance called MAC 305, which has a total capacity of 5 MB, containing 50 pieces of 24 in diameter platters. So this is an example of hard drive for mainframe computers. So in 1958, first IC was built. So Jack Kelby built the first integrated circuit on a piece of germanium half an inch long and thinner than a toothpick, contain 5 components. So Texas Instruments announced the discovery of integrated circuit in 1959, received a patent in 1961. Robert Noyce announced his independent discovery of the integrated circuit. He constructed an IC on a plane of silicon with silicon oxide surface that contained components connected by aluminum wires. So in 1961, the first commercial integrated circuit was released. So this is the first Belt IC. The first virtual memory machine developed by R.M. Kalbora of the University of Manchester was called Atlas and was installed in England by Ferranti. Seymour Cray built the first fully transistorized supercomputer for Control Data Corporation. Then it is called Cray Computer. So this picture is an Atlas, then the Cray Computer. In 1960, the PDP-1 or the Program Data Processor 1 was the first mini-computer and the first commercial computer equipped with keyboard and monitor. It was introduced by Digital Equipment and was developed by Benjamin Curley. So this is the PDP-1. So in 1962, Douglas Engelbart invented the mouse. It is a pointing device for computers. He received a patent for his invention in late 1963 and demonstrated his system's keyboard, keypad, mouse, and windows at the Joint Computer Conference in San Francisco Civic Center in 1968. So this is the mouse. So in 1964, John Kiminey and Thomas Kurtz of Dartmouth developed the beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code or BASIC programming language. So word processing. In the same year, IBM coined the term word processing. American Standard Code for Information Interchange, adopted by the American Standard Association as a standard code for data transfer. So this is the picture. So in 1965, Gordon Moore, Fairchild Semiconductor's head of research and development. Moore's law predicted that the number of transistors that would fit in a given area of silicon would double every year. In 1966, AT&T Bell Labs announced the invention of the magnetic bubble. It had its debut in 1969. So in 1967, the first floppy disk was built by Alan Shogart of IBM. It was used an 8-inch plastic disc coated with iron oxide where data was stored. It was called a memory disk, and data could only be read using 23FD floppy disk drive. So this is a floppy disk drive. In 1968, Wayne Beckett of International Corporation in San Martin, California, designed a computer on a chip. It was developed later in 1970 at the Intel Corporation through the help of Ted Huff, Stan Maxor, Federico Fagen, and the incorporators of Intel Corporation, Robert Noye and Gordon Mayer, as the first microprocessor chip or the 4004 microprocessor. So this is the computer on chip. So in 1968, Nicholas Worth designed Pascal programming language to help students to learn how to program computers. It was purely a teaching language which encouraged instructors' approach to programming. So in 1972, Dennis Ritchie and Brian Kernighan developed the C programming language. During the time, the 514 diskettes first appeared. The first electronic pocket calculator was developed by Jack Kelby, Jerry Merriman, and Jim Tassel of Texas Instruments. So in 1973, Gary Kendale wrote a simple operating system for his PLR-M language and called CPR-M, or Controlled Program or Monitor. He refined it to fit in Intel 8080 based systems. November of 1973, Bob Metcalf of Xerox Palo Alto Research Center. In 1976, Gary Kendall and his wife Dorothy McKeown founded Intergalactic Digital Research, which was later shortened to Digital Research. So in 1974, Ed Roberts of Microinstrumentation Telemetry Systems began building a small computer based on the Intel 8088 chip, which he planned to sell for as low as $500. The prototype was completed within a year and was called Altair 8800. He coined the word personal computer as a part of the advertising campaign for the Altair. It was considered the first personal computer. The first Altair 8800 with 1K memory was sold for $375. Altair was considered the first personal computer. So in 1975, Bill Gates and Paul Allen from Harvard wrote the first programming language for the Altair, which was called BASIC and License Units. Microinstrumentation Telemetry Systems in exchange for a royalty payment. They later founded Microsoft and registered it as a company called Microsoft in November of 1976. Bill Gates dropped out of college after 1 year to devote his time in managing Microsoft, while Paul Allen resigned from MIT and began full-time work at Microsoft on November of 1976. In 1976, Ted Wozniak and Steve Jobs finished the computer circuit board of the Apple I computer in 1976. They formed a company called the Apple Computer Company on April Fool's Day, while Steve Wozniak designed the Apple computer. Steve Jobs promoted it. The computer board was delivered to the stores in July of the same year at $666,066 a piece. So this is an Apple computer. So in 1978, Dan Berkman, a Harvard Business School student with the help of Robert Frankston, a computer programmer, and Dan Felstar, software publisher, developed the first electronics spreadsheet program called VisiCalc. It was released for the Apple computer and became so popular that Microcomputer purchased increased just so they could use the software. So Texas Instruments introduced the Speak and Spell educational toy featuring digital speech synthesis in 1976. So in 1979, Robert Barnaby wrote the program WordStar, which became one of the most popular and best-selling word processors during that time and was released by MicroPro. It is a program that aids the user in producing reports, letters, papers, and manuscript with ease. In relation, Gypsy is one of the first word processors termed WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, developed by Xerox PARC in 1975, which runs on the Alto personal computer. So in 1980, IBM chose Microsoft to create an operating system to be used for its soon-to-be launched personal computer. Microsoft this operating system or MS-DOS, became the standard operating system for computers at that time. Dr. Barney Strostrup of Bell Laboratories created WAS in 1980. It is an object-oriented version of C. In 1981, William Sides, head of the IBM design team for PC, introduced the IBM personal computer, which can be used in the home, office, and schools. This paved the way to the PC revolution. IBM PC clones, which are more affordable, appeared in the market. Hence, the number of PCs in use increased from 2 million to 5.5 million within a span of 1 year. Within 10 years, 65 million pieces were in use. The IBM PC computers were bundled with the MS-DOS and PC-DOS for the IBM PC clones. So this is an IBM PC. In 1953, Lotus 123 became the spreadsheet software choice for microcomputers, replacing VCK. In 1984, Apple Macintosh Lines was introduced to the computer world as an alternative to the IBM PC. Its operating system has a GUI or graphical user interface, which allows users to move screen icons instead of typing instructions. The screen cursor is controlled by a mouse, which mimics the movement of the user's hand on the computer screen. So this is the example of Apple Macintosh. So in 1985, Microsoft introduced a new kind of operating system. Although it still features DOS commands and functions, Windows has a graphical user interface which made it easier for users to operate the computer. Better versions, Windows 95, 98, 200, XP, and others came out later. So Aldus introduced PageMaker for the Macintosh. This started the desktop publishing era. It later introduced in 1987 another version of PageMaker, the IBM PC and compatible. So in 1989, Timothy Berners-Lee created the technology underlying the World Wide Web. He proposed a global network of stored documents that would allow physics researchers to access and exchange information. This was born in Geneva, Switzerland, at the European Laboratory for Particle Physics. The web led to the explosion of interest in the internet, allowing millions of people to find and exchange information on a wide variety of subjects. So in 1994, Jerry Yang and David File created the search engine called Yahoo. So that is the example of Yahoo. Netscape. Meyer Andreessen, with the help of colleagues, developed a program called Mosaic, which allowed the user to move around the web by clicking words and symbols. He formed a company called Netscape Communications Corporation, which market the Netscape web browser. So that is the Netscape. I indicate also the logo of Netscape. So in 1997, Deep Blue, an IBM machine that can make 100 million chess points per second, was able to beat Garry Kasparov, the reigning chess champion, in a game match in the United States. In 2000, before the turn of the century, computer experts warned about the possible inability of computer programs to handle the date change. Early programmers allowed only 2 digits to represent the year. The year 2000 problem caused many users and corporations to prepare. While some problems occurred, no significant difficulties were encountered when the data change happened. So in 2003, Honda Corporation of Japan developed a robot that can walk like a human, go up and down the stairs, greet people, and do some simple tasks. This is a breakthrough in artificial intelligence and robotics. So that's all about the history of computing.